we have done for the last 4 days, otherwise it can really be a bit hazy, because we covered quite a lot of ground which would otherwise have been spent in prolonging it for at least 3 to 4 weeks to learn or cover what we have done in the last 4 days. So we started off with the essence of a business model, okay, and the occurrence of newer and newer business models, and how businesses that are incumbent are innovating, and new entrants are also coming up with a very innovative value proposition for their customers. And we looked at this in the form of a business model canvas. Then we went on to understand various patterns in business models, right, such as long tail pattern, open innovation pattern. And then we looked at how to create a value proposition canvas, which will be fundamental to understanding the needs of your customers, right? And then we looked at a summative overview of how technology is becoming a single biggest lever, the single biggest lever in terms of coming up with innovative ideas, right? And here we are. I still say it's day 4 because we could have covered some of these items yesterday. Because of information overload, I thought I would have moved this to day 5. So there are ways and techniques for you to design better business models or come up with innovative ideas. One of them is understanding the deeper insights of customers, placing yourself in the shoes of customer to understand what they are going through. Okay? We tend to look at this, and the second one, which is ideation today. The remaining are still available, but we are not going to discuss them in detail. Okay? So customer insight is about understanding the unmet needs of the customer. Ideation is about coming up with ideas as part of a group. Okay? Yesterday, sir was talking about the funnel, innovation funnel. Similar to that, we start off with too many ideas and then synthesize them into narrow focused 1 or 2 ideas, which we will then pursue them. Visual thinking, prototyping, storytelling, scenarios, these are all ways in which you could try and test your ideas before you launch them in the market or pursue an entirely new business model in search for a market. Okay. Let's start with customer insights. Okay. So successful innovation requires a deeper understanding of customers. Okay. The environment in which these customers are embedded, their daily routines, their concerns and aspirations. But how would we get to the bottom of this customer's requirements? In your own business models, how would you want to understand your customer better? What can you do to get to understand your customer better?
We can take feedback from customer, or we can have some small research regarding what is the customer needs. It can be done in the car showroom.
Yeah.
The customer are coming for inquiry, so we can have small research there.
Okay. You're saying it's like a feedback survey in your business models? But that is after launching your business.
No, in car showroom.
Okay, even before you launch. Okay. Is that the right place to understand what customers want? Is the car showroom the right place? Most of the customers might not be going to the car showroom at all, because these people cannot afford the car. The whole business model is built on the idea that your customers cannot afford the car. Where else can you find this information? Or do you actually have this information?
In our model, we see when COVID hits, before the COVID, people are not that much conscious about their health, and after the COVID, they are pretty much conscious about their health. So it gives us idea that we will provide a platform where people check their products, that they are healthy for them or not healthy for them.
So take a look at Apple again. I think we covered some points of this earlier. How Apple went on to identify the unmet needs of the customer and satisfy them. Okay. Professor was talking about the gaps in expectation versus perception. Okay. Gap in conformance of the product related queries versus what the actual product is doing for the customer. Okay. These are performance gap, quality gap, okay, and so on. So here, This is an entirely untapped market. Probably nobody would have thought through the idea that customers do not want another digital player for music, for listening to music. They don't want any more digital players. There are already enough digital players. What they want is the ability for their digital players to source music seamlessly. Seamlessly means without the need for going somewhere and buying it and then saving it in their digital player. That's when the concept of iPod came in, which provided access to the source of music through a software integration. The idea is not the digital player. Digital players are already there. Like, so I was talking about Sony, which is a leader in the digital consumer electronics space, right? But this was about trying to integrate the ability to search, find, and listen to digital content just from the music player itself. Okay, that's the innovation. Then someone said, that's fine. Okay, customers most of the time, let's give them the benefit of doubt. They know what they want. Okay. But if you have asked customers about the iPod and its functionality, they could not have articulated it very well because they did not know there was such a possibility for integrating a digital media player, a physical asset, with a software. Okay, they could not even conceive that. Someone almost more than 100 years ago said, if I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses. Mobility was a big challenge back then. I think Sir touched upon that earlier in multiple slides. Mobility was a problem. We are in the era of mobility as a service. Somebody does the chauffeuring for us, somebody owns the car. We just go from A to B by paying for the use, pay per use, such as Uber or Ola or Rapido or whatnot. Who said this? This assumes that customers do not know what they want. But can we rely on customers for insights on asking them what they want and then just fulfilling that need? There are needs that are unmet for customers which they even cannot articulate properly. Okay? Back in the era, it was not possible to think mass production of a car would be possible and the per item cost or per single vehicle cost of a car or a four-wheeler can be brought down to a level where it becomes affordable to masses. Henry Ford said that. Okay. So it might not be the case that your customers are always correct or always articulate enough to know what they want. So even asking them might not be the solution. What else can be the solution? You need to somehow develop this kind of deeper understanding of the needs of your customer. You have to move away from the space where you are thinking from your capabilities perspective. This is what we can develop and this is what we think can be sold, versus we exactly know what will be sold and let us try and make that. Okay, so same goes back again. We are going full circle to the idea of how customers do not want another expensive power drill, but they want just simply holes in their walls to hang pictures or other stuff. Some examples which came up with the ideas of meeting these unfulfilled needs of customers are Zipcar and EasyJet. We looked at that already, urban mobility, and just going from A to B, getting the jobs done. There are examples from India also, such as Paytm. Okay, Paytm, I think it started during the time when demonetization occurred back in 2016, right? They came up with a digital payment interface, and now I think we are using this day in, day out. If not this, there is another application, PhonePe, and so on. But these were the people who were early innovators in that space. There's Big Basket again. Big Basket is about meeting this idea of urban customers that needed more convenience and reliability. They offered a one-stop online platform for all the unmet needs of getting fresh produce and groceries delivered to their doorstep. And this helped very coincidentally during the time of lockdown for many households. Okay. So how will you do that? You don't want to directly ask the customer because they might not be correct or they might not provide you what is essentially the unmet need of a wider pool of customers, or you can probably run a focus group. You know what is a focus group? You gather a few customers, okay? You create an open platform for discussion, probe into the needs of these customers, keep on repetitively asking them what would be better in this situation, how would they rate this particular kind of feature in the service, okay? And this above and beyond that focus group, you can as a group sit down and think about your customers' insights, okay? What does my customer feel and think, okay? So think about any of your business, okay? Think about your business. I think you articulated that pain very well, let's say. Most of you did. What was this customer feeling and thinking about ownership of a car?
So like they won't, the investment that they will be doing, they won't get the return out of it because mostly luxury cars have a lower mileage, and then Indian roads are not designed in such way. There is a lot of traffic and it won't be very efficient for them to invest in such a large amount.
That is the insight of that is their body concern.
Yes, sir. The concern of the middle class prominently.
What is the concern of your customer?
Lack of healthier choices.
There is no place for them to find out what is a healthier choice. It's not just lack of healthier choices. Healthier choices are there, but they don't know how to compare between these choices. Which one is more healthier than the other? That's their concern. They are on the blind side of information, asymmetry.
And the particular product's alternatives. If a person want that particular product, if that product is unhealthy, so we will provide the alternative option for that particular concern.
What is the main concern of your customer? What are they thinking and feeling?
Our main concern will be the seamless experience in the checkout during the checkout, because there will be a huge traffic during the checkout in these shopping malls, so that's the thing.
Their main concern, even precisely, how can I say that? Even precisely, their main concern is shopping is a very hassle-some experience. I don't want to go shopping. Why? You have to dig around and understand. Queuing is one aspect of it. The whole idea of taking out things at the counter, getting it scanned and putting it back and organizing them is another hassle. Just let's keep it to the basics. There could be other things, but you know this when you deeply reflect on the shopping experience. You might want to go and trace the path of your customer to see how they are navigating this shopping experience. There is something called service transaction analysis. At every step of the process where you're meeting people, where you're getting greeted, or where you're interacting with the crew in the shop, your experience can be mapped on a scale of 1 to 5, let's say. You might want to do that service transaction analysis or customer journey and understand what really goes through the minds of your customers. Okay? What do they see? What do customers see? Okay? What are the other products in the market that are similar to that of yours? What are the alternatives? What are your customer's friends, relatives using? Are her friends using something very sophisticated? If so, can you live up to that existing competition? What does your customer hear? Okay. What are influencers saying about this particular product or service in the market? What does your customer say and do? What is their value system? So all of these come into picture when firstly you start thinking about it from a customer's point of view. You can do this when you're sitting like this. You can map this out. You can test it by asking a good number of customers by running a simple survey poll. Okay. Again, there is a left hand side and right hand side here. What are the fears, frustrations and obstacles for your customer? What is their pains? And what are the wants and needs? How do they classify this as a success? Right? Which are gains. So this is one way to look at the inner workings of your customers' minds, which is essential for you to show these features very palpably, tangibly, in a way that customers receive it through your product or service. Okay. So these are some questions about what you have to do when you are doing empathy map. You can go back and do this later, but there is quite a lot of ground we need to cover today. So I'll leave this on the slide for you to go through. This is a simple exercise. You can't go wrong with this. So let's go and do one of these questions. So what does your customer see? Describe what the customer sees in her environment. Imagine you were all 1 year ago aspirants of MBA, okay? And you had a choice to either go to IIIT Gwalior, come to IIIT Gwalior, or any other university. You had specifically made a choice to come here. What was going on in your mind at that time? What were you seeing? For example, you might be looking at the campuses, different campuses, the facilities within those campuses, the ease of getting there, the quality of life in the vicinity, which is perhaps here in Gwalior, the city where this institution was. You might be listening to stories by alumni who just passed out. You might be looking at the placement record. There are quite a few features that you're looking for in your future institution where you wanted to study. Okay. You can place yourself in the shoes of that customer and do a simple exercise to go through these 4 factors, including your pains and gains. Okay? What were your issues with existing institutions and what you want to achieve by coming to IIIT Gwalior in particular, not MBA in general, but the campus in particular. Okay? So you might have taken stock of so many things, like let's go through what does she see. Okay? Describe what the customer sees in her environment. What does it look like? Okay. Is it a very competitive marketplace, very overloaded, right? Too many players, hard to choose between one and the other. Who are you surrounded by? Are your relatives influencing your decision? Are your parents influencing your decision? Are your friends influencing your decision? Okay. What types of offers are you exposed to daily? Okay. What makes you tick, basically? Is placement record very appealing to you versus a beautiful campus? Okay. What are the problems you encounter? By going through the nitty-gritty, answering each of these questions, you get to a point where the offer is becoming more and more clear as to what you want to propose to your customer, because you know the inner workings of your customer. You're empathizing with your customer at the level of their mind. Whatever is visible physically and what people sometimes say might not be true. That is what Ford was saying. I don't want to ask my customers because they would have said, we are anyway used to riding these horses. If horses are faster, you can reach your destination faster. Yeah. Nobody would have thought through that mass production of cars was possible. So by knowing the inner workings, you can think of what your customers might need as opposed to what they feel they require. Okay. I want you to apply this to your business model and see how your value proposition can be enhanced further or changed further. Once you go through this exercise in your group by asking these questions about the inner workings of your customers' mind and what they want as an experience from this particular service you're providing, then you can enhance your value proposition. Second technique to improve your business model or to design a better business model is ideation. Okay? Ideation is about generating new creative ideas, okay, to build a better or innovative model. Okay? Might be the case of coming up with a new business model altogether, or it could be improving an existing business model. Okay? There are two phases mainly when you are ideating as a group. First phase is the generation, the second one is the synthesis. Okay? Generation ends at this dotted line where you will have a wide pool of ideas, saying no to everything. And then synthesis is the structuring of these ideas based on your capabilities and based on what customers need. Okay? And coming to a very practically possible list of few ideas or one or two ideas that will be implemented. There's a very interesting video about how one consulting firm, it's a design consultancy called IDEO. You can note this down. If there was time, I would have showed you this. But IDEO is the leading design consultancy in this world, equivalent to McKinsey in management consultancy. So there's a video on how they design a shopping cart, which gives us a perspective for how you can design innovative products with a group of engineers, people with diverse backgrounds such as architects or designers. Right? They say in making the Apple iPhone, so many multidisciplinary teams were involved, including those that look at the ergonomics of the phone, what is really good for human eyes, okay? And obviously technocrats. Font and the font that they use in Apple has a very big background on how it came to being. Right? They came up with new font also, which they use, which is copyrighted. So when you go through that video you'll understand what goes on behind the scenes of designing products. So what they do is basically, let's say if you want to design a shopping cart, who is the shopping cart? You're the shopping cart team, right? So instead of a handheld phone which you put in your pocket and you can use a shopping cart, okay, with some RFID sensor. Whatever you put in your basket, it's instantly showing it on the digital tablet or screen on top of it. Okay. That can probably, if you're a repeat shopper, that can connect to your phone through NFC or Bluetooth or whichever communication protocol, and simply you can pay at the end once your shopping is done. You can move the cart all the way to your car and then load up your car with these items. So there was businesses which came up with the what if question. IKEA, what do you think was their what if we did this kind of question? IKEA said, what if our furniture was functional? Regular furniture is, let's say, bring a table, you can't, once you assemble it, you can't dismantle it or move it around. Okay? What if we have furniture that is functional, space saving, portable, yeah? And you can build on multiple modules, modular. What's the question? What was the question for Skype? Skype said, what if communicating with your friends across the world is free? Back in early mid-2000s, the international subscriber dialing rates are very expensive. Okay, reaching out to people across borders. What if it was made free through voice over IP? It was free for a very long time unless you are making business calls or making more calls. That's a certain limit. This was a freemium product. Then it was bought over by, who bought over Skype? Microsoft bought over Skype. That was, I think, one of the biggest deals of the time. Rolls-Royce, you know what is the what if question of Rolls-Royce? What is the what if question Rolls-Royce asked? What if?
What type of customization you need in your cars?
Okay, but we moved away from cars. We were talking about aircraft engines,
Aircraft
jet
engines,
engines, right? What was the question they might have asked?
What if we can provide jet engines on hourly basis?
Yeah. Just for the power the customer used. It's an innovative thought, isn't it? It was not new, but still, Xerox was doing that. But what if we introduce this in the jet engine space? So, those are some techniques which you could use in order to improve your existing business model. I want you to spend some time thinking about that, working in a group to ask these questions. Can you ask these what if questions? I'll go back to the slide later, but let's finish this. Once you ask these what if questions, you're fundamentally changing the way you think about what customer needs, rather than assuming this is what customer needs. Okay? These presuppositions need to be challenged. There should be a certain level of openness in which you operate as a business. Okay? You cannot operate like a corner shop. Corner shop does not do any market research before they set up. As a residential area, there are a few apartment buildings. They think everybody wants, on the go groceries. Sometimes they can come and buy stuff. That is the assumption based on which they set up a grocery store. But they might be in for a big surprise if people order everything online and never turn up to the grocery store. So market research is very important. On top of it, empathizing with your customer to understand their inner workings and deeper insights. So this is a very interesting concept of how you can innovate in different blocks. Innovation as an overarching term for your business model. Think about how my model can change altogether to offer better propositions to customers. That's one way. But going to the nuts and bolts of my business model canvas itself, how can I change my value proposition? How can I improve my key activities? What impact will this have on my customer? Okay, so that is called epicenter-based innovation. So each of these can act as an epicenter from where innovation can sprout, and it will impact the rest of the business model. Okay. So, resource-driven innovation is innovation that you are making fundamentally at the or in the key resources block. What are your key resources? Last group. What are your key resources?
Gig workers, partners.
Your platform,
Website.
your website. Is that a resource? Are you using any space to develop this software? Probably you will have a rental building. Okay. Your key resource is human resources, right? Your intellectual property also, to a degree. Does anyone have any physical assets? You have some.
So the fleet of cars.
Fleet of cars is a key resource. Anyone holds any infrastructure at all?
Technology.
Technology infrastructure. Let's take a look at one example.
Servers.
Amazon Web Services was built on top of Amazon.com's retail infrastructure. Okay. Amazon did not enter this space as a software provider for other businesses. They came to this space as a e-commerce platform where customers can buy anything from a basic item, a list of groceries, through to books, through to bigger items, including clothes, including fashionable items, and so on. So, but now a significant chunk of their revenue is coming from Amazon Web Services. What is this Amazon Web Services? How would they manage to do this? They already have a strong hold on how data is being managed. They learned and mastered the ways of working with their data, handling their data, because they're catering to the entire world's population. Most of the countries use Amazon. Okay. So based on that, they built a very strong resource of server farms or other IT infrastructure, which they then used to rent it out. They came with, of course, new fresh greenfield investments like server farms, which they are using and helping other companies to hold as their cloud storage. It's a centralized storage for many companies. They sell this in the form of buckets. You can buy buckets of memory and you can run applications on them. You can pay for high speed, more performance, quicker customer service in order to resolve any issues you have. The time you use it, all of these are factored into provide a service for companies that need IT to be hosted, software as a service, okay, on cloud platforms. This they were managing to do based on the resources they had already built into their business model. These are not new resources, but once they scaled up, they knew how to replicate this. But initially, this idea came from their own existing resources. So think about how any infrastructure or any resources that you already have built into your business model can be used to widen your offering to a diverse set of customers. Now, as a result of this, what happened? The customer segments for Amazon has changed. Think of and extrapolate this. What were the customer segments for Amazon at the beginning? Imagine, who were the different customers for Amazon?
The book readers.
Book readers.
The book readers.
Book readers, busy people, okay, people with a certain level of disposable income, people in certain geographical regions. If it is too snowy, it is bad weather out there, you might not drive your car, but you might want to get something delivered to your doorstep, right? Okay. So they could have broken this down into a set of segments, but with the advent of this resource-driven innovation, the customer segments has changed. The customer segments has suddenly an influx of companies who are in the space of IT, okay, who are IT businesses primarily, e-commerce platforms, who might be using Amazon's infrastructure. Amazon is not giving away its competitive advantage by letting others share its infrastructure. It is only asking for a rent, yeah, subscription. Tesla, I want you to watch this video. How resource-driven innovation can be very powerful at the times of crisis. Okay. And how Tesla tried to do this, although they did not scale it.
Create content for people and search engines with SEMrush SEO Writing Assistant. Get your copy SEO ready.
Hey guys, a lot of stuff going on around with the coronavirus. So this is Tesla Engineering. We're in the lab and we've been Hey guys, a lot of stuff going on around with the coronavirus. So this is Tesla Engineering. We're in the lab and we've been working on some stuff. We just wanted to
That's Tesla Vice President Lars Moravi, and the stuff in question is a prototype ventilator. Tesla, like many firms, trying to help tackle a shortage of the vital hospital equipment. The US alone is thought to need tens of thousands more of the devices which help patients breathe. The automaker has tried to produce a new design using technology it's familiar with. Engineering Director Joseph Mardau.
We want to use parts that we know really well, we know the reliability of, and we can go really fast and they're available in volume. So here's our kind of high-level schematic design. You can see all the red parts here are a Tesla vehicle part, so we've used a lot of those.
The prototype was unveiled Sunday evening. Tesla founder Elon Musk says they will be supplied free to US hospitals, but there's no word yet on when deliveries might start. Many other US firms are making efforts. Ford said last week it would produce 50,000 ventilators within 100 days. General Motors aims to be making 10,000 a month by the summer. The need is pressing. White House medical experts say between 100,000 and 240,000 Americans could die during the virus outbreak. That's even if sweeping orders to stay at home are heeded.
Hey guys, a lot of stuff going on around with the coronavirus.
Right. Okay. So what we saw there was a very interesting phenomenon. Tesla is an automobile manufacturer, electric vehicles. They have several components which might be common, or that could be used to develop other stuff. Okay. They have pressure sensors. They have pneumatic devices, and so on. Okay. All the engineering stuff. There was a sudden need for ventilators during the thick of the pandemic. Okay. Because people were gasping for breath because of these lung infections, and government doesn't usually have, not only Indian government, many developed nations and their hospital infrastructure did not have stock of these pneumatic devices called ventilators. Ventilators were only limited to ICUs. What is the ratio of ICUs in a hospital? For every, let's say, 100 beds, you have what? Probably. Okay. Even very developed nations which had excellent hospital infrastructure, such as Italy, were reeling from pressure to acquire these ventilators. And there was a ventilator challenge in UK. Who could manufacture these ventilators for a cheaper price and bring it to market faster? Have you seen the Innocentive business model yesterday, day before? Innocentive is about advertising innovation challenges which others could try to solve and get a fee for it, seekers and solvers. So governments have this unmet need which was probably shaping up very quickly as the situation escalated during the pandemic time. And what happened? Tesla came forward and said, we can very quickly assemble a ventilator, whether that is scalable ventilator or not, but they provided a proof of concept. How was that possible? Based on the existing infrastructure they have for using car parts to reuse them or repurpose them. It's called repurposing of your equipment to develop newer products. Can you think of this resource-driven innovation in your own business model? This happens much later, but there's no harm in thinking about it right now to see how your resources that you are using to develop your value proposition can be utilized further to meet the needs of customers outside the sphere of your business model. These are new customers, patients, but the ultimate customers are governments who would buy these. Who is it ultimately benefiting? Patients. Patients were not thought of until that point. They were not factored into this because it was an escalating, developing situation by the day. People were exposed to this virus and they go through these stages of infection where if they were hospitalized, they will regardless need a ventilator. But ultimately, as we got more and more evidence that people who go on ventilator only have a 50% chance of coming back. Then they dropped using these ventilators for later. The whole focus shifted onto using steroids and injections like remdesivir. Most of them in the Western world were not signed off. Okay? They were not prescribed. Still, people used everything in their hand to help these patients anyway. That's one example of resource driven. What is offer-driven innovation? Offer-driven innovation is you are committing yourself to a certain service standards, or you're making a service promise to your customer that I'm going to deliver this in such and such time, with such and such speed, with such and such quality. That is your offer. As a result of that offer, your remaining blocks of business model have to align with it or change. Okay? Cemex is a Mexican cement maker. What it does is basically they service construction sites with poured concrete. If you mix concrete, it only has a certain life. Otherwise, afterwards, it gets solidified. It won't be usable. So what Cemex did, Cemex came up with the idea that we will pour concrete directly to your building site, and we will do that within 4 hours. Okay? From the time you order, within 4 hours, we'll bring it down to your customer's site, your construction site. What was this offering, which Sir was talking about earlier? Is the speed. What service promise is it? Or service standard? Speed. Poured concrete should have a certain quality. Okay. And ultimately it should have some durability. Cement mix has a certain strength, C40, C50, whatever. So this was made possible by transforming their entire business model. By changing their activity. See, if you promise something to your customer from a value point of view, everything should be aligned in order to support that. Your key activities should be in such a way that you end up buying an entire fleet of these concrete mixer trucks which were on the road like Uber cars, like ambulances. Ambulances can't sit in one place and wait for somebody to call you from 30 miles away. There are strategic places in the city where these ambulances are parked, or police cars are parked. We call this petroleum in police terms, or distributed positioning, right? So these Cemex trucks were there ready to receive calls, or they have these strategic locations in major cities. You could summon them in a matter of 4 hours. Customer-driven innovation. Here, in the example of Lego, which we looked at earlier already, customers were playing a major role in anchoring these innovation efforts by the company. Instead of hiring designers and coming up with newer sets, almost innovation as a function has been outsourced to its customers. And customers need to do this. Customers are bored by existing sets. My little son, who is now 8 years old, he started building Lego at 4. We used to get this one set of sea creatures, and there's a YouTube channel which he used to follow. And that guy used to tell you how you can make different sea animals with only one set. Or sometimes you can combine 2 sets and make. He used to make 40, 50 different sea creatures. But he has outgrown that. And you have to move on to the next thing. If the next thing is not available, you'll altogether ditch the idea of making Lego, because you have outgrown the whole experience of creating something new, because you're not able to create anything new. So this game is all about creating new structures. How can you be so innovative on a daily basis to come up with ideas unless you outsource it to a wider pool of innovators? Innovators are these kids and their parents who have interest in Lego. There are big competitions of Lego, exhibitions of Lego, where people, irrespective of their age, they spend a lot of time building these projects. It's very therapeutic. Outside their work hours, they go back and start building this massive Titanic ship, which takes a year or 2, and they come and display in these exhibits. So there's a huge ecosystem for these Lego builders and Lego factory works. So the innovation is being driven by customers. That is the epicenter. Finance-driven innovation. This comes from how you can perceive or execute new revenue streams, new pricing mechanisms, okay? By reducing your cost base. One example could be Xerox. This happened very, very long time ago. Imagine what they did basically. There is a setup cost, there's a asset cost for buying these Xerox machines. I think Xerox at that time the machine was Xerox 914. Okay? It's one of the first photocopying machines, okay? But it's very expensive to buy as a machine. So what they did, they came up with this idea of leasing the machine on a monthly rental of whatever it was, $95 per month, and that included 2,000 free copies. Above and beyond, if you have to print more, then they charged whatever 5 cents or 10 cents for additional copy. This is giving empowerment to customers who cannot buy the asset in one go. Businesses run in cycles. Okay, so some businesses have 30-day cycles, some have 60 days, some have 90-day cycles. That is when your cash flow will be surplus in your business, so that you could reinvest it or buy things. So instantly, if they want to start today, they might not have that money. Similar to your example of how customers might be working on a monthly salary, they would not have a pool of money to invest into a car straight away. Okay? And even if they did, buying such a machine and looking after it is a hassle. Okay? There are many moving parts in a Xerox machine. If not moving parts, there are many parts that can wear and tear. You should get an engineer to service this machine time to time. Why would you pay for an engineer? After all, you run a simple photocopy business. So that is one idea of finance-driven innovation. Similar to what IKEA is doing. We looked at this example where IKEA is providing revenue, financing customers without any interest to buy more. Okay? They are using their financial resources to allow customers to buy more. Okay? And there are examples of multiple epicenter-driven innovation. Multiple epicenters are when you are innovating from not just one core block but multiple blocks. Example is Hilti. Okay, so Hilti is a manufacturer of power tools. They were renting out these sets, and what they did was basically they had to create an ecosystem for renting out these tools, not buying from retail stores. So they should tie up with tool banks, sell to tool banks, or let them hire these, which is again impacting on your key resources, your channels, the way you manage relationship with your customers. All of these are impacted when you change the value offering, the value proposition. Value proposition here is hassle-free hiring of power tools, which you do not have to end up paying for a lot of money. Okay. These are examples. You can spend a lot of time trying to draw parallels between any Indian businesses. Okay. So what I wanted you to do was, I wanted you to do two activities, basically for practice. One is develop an empathy map for a restaurant that you want to set up. Very simple example. You could either do that, or you could directly use your business model and develop an empathy map. The customer wants a fine dining experience. What would they see? What would they hear? What would they think and feel? What would they say and do? What are their pains? And what gains do they want from this experience? Similarly, you can apply the same to your business model. And the whole idea behind this is that, can you make any more improvements to your business model by doing so? Second one is ideation. You can do this in pairs, or you can do it as part of a group. Think about how you refine your business model further based on these what-if questions. Okay. So what-if questions are, in your case, give me that what-if question. What if
luxury cars are affordable?
What if you can change your car very regularly? What if you can
Get new
drive it? Yeah.
kind of it. What if you get a new upcoming car to use?
Very good. Articulate that further. What if you can change your cars frequently? And what if you can drive luxury cars at a fractional price? What if you don't have ownership hassle? What if
What if you can compare the exports of product while grocery shop seamlessly?
that is again okay, it is practical, but what I would say is, what if you eat healthy every time? What if you completely are on top of nutritional information? Every intake or every item you consume, what if every item you consume is healthy? Be bold to ask these questions. Your group, what if?
So, what if the customer does not have a smartphone? So, how are we going to tackle those customers?
But that's not your business model. Your business model is go on.
So, actually, there are many customers, there are different types of customers also who does not have a smartphone.
Okay.
So, how we are going to tackle those customers also in our services? So, that's the thing we can.
So that, let's keep it to basics. I'll come to that question. But what is the actual offering for your business? You are making shopping experience seamless.
Yes.
What if you don't carry cash to your shopping?
Yeah. So, that's the thing.
Isn't it?
Yes.
What if you shop on the go? What if you only spend a fractional time for your shopping? What if your shopping experience is seamless and hassle-free? Like that, okay? Having a mobile phone or not is again something futuristic that you want to discuss. Last group.
What is your household problem solved within seamlessly?
Come on, more bolder.
Someone can do your work chores instead of
What if you can sit at home and get things done? What if you are not moving a muscle to get things done?
What if you are in office but your whole work will be done by a person?
What if you are outsourcing your chores? Okay, so we looked at how to draft a business model from basics. We looked at how to innovate a business model based on epicenter-based innovation, some examples. We looked at how to ideate, how to get down to the bottom of the inner workings of your customers' minds. But once you start operating your business month on month, year on year, there might be quite a few problems that you encounter. You might need to change the color and shape of your hat, and you might become problem solvers for your own business. Who would do that otherwise? Do you have to, will you outsource your problem solving to somebody else? You are the manager, you are the owner. Okay, this is called the producer-manager dilemma. You are the one who are working to make this happen as a business, and you are the one who is going to solve problems for this business also. How will you solve problems? Most of the time, problems that you see that are evident on the face of it are not the real problems. You have to structure what the problem is. Like how customers assume they know what they want, versus if you scientifically, as a group, delve into the inner workings and understand what they might need, you'll come up with a different value proposition. It might be more than what customer wants or customer needs. Okay? So likewise, sometimes the problems that you are encountering might not be very obvious problems. So you have to look under the surface. You have to structure this problem, define it correctly in order to solve it. Why are we solving this problem? Innovation is a continuous effort. It's not that you innovate at the beginning of your business model as you start up and then leave it there. It is a continuous process that goes on. and never ends basically, because the competition is very dynamic in a marketplace. There are many new entrants. There are changes in the regulation at which you can operate. Okay, so you need to be on top of this regulatory regime, market forces, right? Key trends that are shaping customers' perceptions about what is value, what is quality, what is performance, and so on. So, in order to become good problem solvers for your business, there is one very interesting way to look at a business, or in general structure your thinking. It is called systems thinking. So a lot of the times what we do today might have implications, but they might be set apart in time. The implications might come a year later. Think about what happened when governments have taken very hasty decisions to lock down their country or human activity as a result of curbing the spread of coronavirus. So many people were at the receiving end. They were victimized. So many people even died. These are called unintended consequences of your decisions. Okay? So today's problems come from yesterday's solutions. Hastily, if you get into a point where you are myopic, wanted to make quick money and implemented an idea, ultimately, I can't give you an example for that. You can relate this to your own business models, but ultimately, you're not leveraging enough. Okay. So think about the long term. Think about the holistic picture, multiple viewpoints. This is what this discipline of systems thinking can do to us in terms of helping us to widen our perspective. I'll go into the details of what systems thinking is basically. So, firstly, it is about getting a panoramic vision of how things work, okay? Rather than analyzing things by reducing it. Take biology, take physics. What is the fundamental building block in these sciences? You go down to the bottom of matter. Okay? In biology, you go to the cell, you go to understand the powerhouse. You disintegrate everything, break it down into bite-sized chunks, and you see what is the fundamental building block. In physics also, you break it down, atoms or atomic particles, or to the point of quarks. Okay? That is called reductionist thinking. You're reducing everything to its component parts. If your car stopped in the middle of the road, you call a mechanic, open the bonnet, look at where things are not working, what went wrong, you change that part, the car is back on the road again. But what happens in human organizations, where people are at the center of these problems, your decisions are at the center of these problems? You can't put a finger, like you put a finger in the bonnet and say, the radiator has broken. It's very hard to pinpoint where problems are occurring in organizations. Organizations have many moving parts. Organizations need a perspective to understand where things can be improved, things can be changed, but not things can be replaced, like you replace parts in a physical moving object like car. Okay? So think about these ideas. In reductionistic thinking, you have many different components that make up a whole. In systems thinking world, it's a philosophy, it's a way of life. Okay? You see interconnected parts. One part is connected with the other. Okay? Lack of motivation in workplace is connected to lack of incentives. You better incentivize people, they might feel motivated to work. Your lack of productivity is coming from lack of incentives. Your inability to manage talent, you are giving a very talented employee some routine jobs. Okay. So reductionist thinking is about the scientific principles of management. It started at the beginning of Industry Revolution 2. Frederick Taylor's principles about division of labor. Okay. Skilled people should be working on skilled jobs, non-skilled people should be doing other rudimentary stuff. Streamlining of stuff in your shop floor, which machine should be placed at which location to move things in an order. and so on. But those principles, we have outgrown those principles. You can't still look at an organization in the paradigm of command and control. I give orders and they perform. You can't look at it like that. It's more open. It's about guiding, nudging, and persuading your employees. Okay? Because employees are, especially in your area, in your business world, employees are more or less knowledge intensive. I'm not talking about the people who you use to get the chores done, but your employees are very knowledge intensive, knowledge workers. They're autonomous people. If you use command and control, they become elevator assets. So, looking at linear cause and effect, looking at things in a circular manner. Looking at silos, for example, you look at HR as a function. Okay? HR's job is only to run the payroll, only to onboard new employees, run a recruitment campaign, and take exit interviews. That is a silo-based approach. Okay? What if HR can take part in daily activities of the company? Look at talent management, look at regular, running of workshops, knowledge management for people. Okay? So that is looking at emergence, how many different things put together can come up with a better idea. Think of ideas such as seeing wood for trees. What is seeing wood for trees? Wood means forest in English. Wood is also timber. Take timber. Let's say seeing forest rather than trees. What is the difference in seeing a forest rather than simply trees?
Varieties.
Forest is an ecosystem. Individual trees cannot hold all the flora and fauna, but when you put together many trees, there's something more than individual trees. Okay? The climate pattern can change in a forest. The soil nutrition and the soil composition can change. You're giving rise to newer animals that can coexist with others in that environment. So it is much more than individual trees. It's like individual stick versus a bundle of sticks. There's an emergent property called strength. It's hard to break it. Similar to that, but a bit more sophisticated. Okay. In conventional thinking, you're looking at parts. Let me change that. But you're ignoring the idea behind how each part is influencing the other. Think of your business model canvas, your representative innovation. Something that changes in the offer can have an impact on other blocks. Okay? So systems thinking is about synthesizing, not just analyzing. Right? And systems thinking is about interrelationships, not just looking at things in isolation. So this is how, after Second World War, there is a new discipline and body of knowledge that has been built over years of research, which tells us that holistic thinking, or looking at interconnected parts, relationships between different elements in a system, can give us a more wider picture, a more liberating picture, and can solve problems in a way that is very democratic, as opposed to solving problems in a very scientific or analytic manner. Science plays a role, okay, but beyond that science, you need to factor in the human aspects. If you only operate a bunch of machines, you can go about as scientifically as possible. If humans are operating on that machine, you have to look at the time they spend, the ergonomics, health and safety issues, their motivations. Otherwise, the whole performance of the system can come down. Their skill level and training, if they are not trained properly, they cannot use the machine properly. Okay. So those are examples of how systems thinking can allow you to become better problem solvers. And so I did this in an environment of pure services. I did this in an environment of production or manufacturing, using different frameworks to use systems thinking as an intervention to develop better business models. So there's a way to do this. This is a end-to-end process of a particular service, which is called litigation in a law firm. And what you're seeing there is a complex system with feedback loops, interrelated parts, not your regular flow chart that you use. This is called process-oriented holonic modeling. We have written about this in top quality journals. Research is still ongoing. We use this as a methodology to improve problem solving in an organization. Learn about what is going wrong in your organization and allow better decision making, so that your business models are always thriving. There should be one way to put together all these thoughts and come up with a consensus among decision makers. Otherwise, one decision has no relation to the other decision. People are not working in a congenial environment. So in order to build such consensus, we can use maps like this, which act as props or snapshots of the process. So red bubbles are all people, green bubbles in that are tangible elements, the plain bubbles are all intangible factors. They are connected with arrows, and each arrow carries a verb which explains what is happening between the direction of the arrow, what is happening between these bubbles. So this is developed at Aston University where I work by Professor Ben Clerk. I am close associate of his, and we use this in day-to-day life with organizations, businesses. We enable companies to think creatively using this methodology. So one interesting feature of this methodology is that you can break this entire model into small bite-sized chunks and build one on top of the other by asking questions at each step. Like for example, there's a group of stakeholders who own this process. We can enable them to participate in discussion and ask them, how can we change our business model for the better? What more services can we offer? How can we increase or change our value proposition? How can we do our key activities differently? And you keep on asking these questions and capture the information, tease out responses from people. Ultimately, you end up with a huge amount of data. Imagine what we did earlier, customer insights. We were using customer empathy map. You can bring a few customers to participate in this focus group. Ask them how we can serve you better at this stage. What are your thoughts, feelings, perceptions about this particular service, current service, incumbent way of doing things, and how can we change for the better? It's a very democratic approach. It is an approach that allows people to speak up and build some sort of a congenial environment in the workplace. And ultimately, you finish this whole exercise in 2 to 3 hours. You have a whole lot of data that you analyze using post-it notes, and then you come up with key changes that you want to make to your business model. Okay? So these are some of the tools I developed alongside lawyers, sitting with them. Okay? I'm not a lawyer, but I worked in a law firm for about 7.5, 8 years. And lawyers are very clever, very autonomous, highly educated, critical thinkers. Their earning potential is also very high. You are talking about per hour they charge about 300 pounds, 30,000 rupees per hour of time they spend. Imagine. How can you go and tell somebody who has that earning potential and that level of understanding that what you're doing is wrong, change this? Do they listen to you? If you go in a command and control environment, you need to make them understand what their actions are and how they are influencing others' actions in the system. That is what systems thinking is about. Making or bringing to the surface the interrelationship between all the moving parts. Okay? And this worked out really well, and we went on to receive several awards for the work that we did with this law firm across the globe. And they even went on to help sponsor my PhD later on. Okay? So helping how to solve problems by defining them better, ultimately with the goal of improving their business model. We made so many changes as a result of these innovative ideas to that company, which is still thriving, doing really well. Okay, so this is another example of a core manufacturing setup. Okay, they had some issues with capacity constraints, legacy process. All of these issues you will come across in your day-to-day life once you start running these business models. Tomorrow you might not end up becoming an entrepreneur, but we are assuming that you will be one. Even if you're not, if you're working in a consultancy setup in an organization also, you are the one who should be dealing with ideas of how to improve capacity, okay? how to change things in your organization. Okay? In C-level positions also, from starting analyst, consultant, okay, C-level positions, this is what we'll be thinking. So these ideas are all helpful. So these are some ideas, and then we drafted another pro model for that, and ultimately we ended up changing their business in small incremental steps, not radical changes. Okay? So that's an example of what we did and how we solved problems to enhance business models. In the morning session, we looked at, after Sir's talk, which was hinging on how you should have an eye for quality, how service quality is different from product quality, how you can build into design some of these quality features. We looked at quite a few things on how to innovate, how to ideate, how to use empathy map, and we looked at epicenter-based innovations, and then we looked at how to solve problems. So in the next session, if time permits, we'll very briefly spend time on how to do benchmarking. Okay? So 15 minutes of break. I know I've taken longer, sorry. We can come back roughly at about 12 o'clock. Okay? Let's come back here at 12 o'clock. We said we want to do something inside out. Inside out is we are looking at how internally we could manage our resources better, including manpower, ideate, understand customer insights, and innovate our business in the close quarters where we are based. That is inside out. Outside is where we are bringing in new ideas by looking at competitors, sometimes non-competitors across the sector to understand how they function to be best in class. Okay? Let's take a look at what is best in class. Best in class is the highest current performance level in an industry. I think Professor has touched on this early morning today, right? He provided examples of Sony as opposed to LG or Samsung in terms of its performance and innovation. Okay, he was talking about the design of a Beetle car, performance of Ferrari. These are all best-in-class examples, right? They're top-notch. They are the leaders in what they do. So I want you to understand the idea of benchmarking by exploring an example within your own business models. Okay? It doesn't have to be the same. It could be either complementary or it could be a completely contradictory example to what you have. Try and name a few best-in-class companies that you know of. Okay? Think about anything. Think about a bank. Okay? Think about a ride-hailing service. Think about e-commerce platforms. Any examples of best-in-class? Toyota is best-in-class for?
The quality of cars.
Reliability of cars, yeah. Yeah.
Samsung for display.
Displays? I think Prakash was saying it's Sony, isn't it, for displays?
Sony is using Samsung display.
Is it?
Even Apple.
So Sony is for cameras actually.
Sony has tied up with Carl Zeiss lenses.
Any more examples of best in class? Let's say in automobile industry, banking industry, retail industry.
So in surveillance we have Hikvision. Tesla.
Manufacturing electric cars, autonomous, self-driving capable electric cars. This is a UK example, first direct. But can you give an Indian example of?
SBI.
HDF.
Okay. Tell me what SBI is really good at. How is it best in class?
Sir, it is the only bank that has been stable in maintaining the inflations that is going around. Like it is said that in India all banks can be privatized but not SBI.
This strategy is best in class perhaps. For customer service, for me, is it best in class? Again, I don't want to be on record, but if you go to remote branches of SBI, you'll probably appreciate more of what I'm talking about. There's nothing wrong about it. There's a Harvard case study on SBI. Okay, it is about transformation. I met the SBI chairman, O.P. Bhatt, at the time in Harvard classroom. So he's the guy who tried to really change many things at a bank which was almost limping. Its infrastructure, the way they service customers, all needed review and renovation, complete rethink. Because in India, glass banks, as you call them, like ICICI, HDFC, Axis, these are glass banks. Have you seen any SBI branch fitted with any glasses in the facade other than the windows? Those are also very broken window pane type of glasses. But on the other hand, go to these city-based or corporate style banks like Axis or ICICI. At least as you walk in, there is some kind of a feeling that you are entering a much professional environment. You are greeted by people. Have you ever been greeted by anyone in a public sector bank? Is there a way to, navigate through the queue? Are the queues managed well? Public sector banks?
So Geo telecommunication.
Geo and telecommunication. What did Geo do?
So nowadays, their network is very strong if you go to remote area also, as compared to any other SIM card company.
But what did actually Geo do?
Network service provider.
It is a network service provider. I think they brought down the cost of
You actually changed whole telecom industry. Previously, we brought around 125 GB around for 1 month. Right now, per day we are getting 1.5 GB or 2 GB data. So it not only reduces the cost of internet, but accessibility to all, which is previously not done. And that is why it dominates the market. And at the same time, all the telecom industry and the who can compete, like Airtel competed best. Idea does not, that's why it is declining in the market.
Still, India has some of the cheapest, one of the cheapest markets for subscribers to access telecom services. And one of the strongest networks, I would say, plus cheaper data. Retail industry, Amazon. Amazon has changed the game in terms of providing very efficient logistics to deliver their goods to the doorsteps of customers, and in the process they innovated in many ways and aspects of their key activities. Okay. For Amazon, their key activities are a big strength. We looked at how key resources were used by Amazon to drive innovation, but key activities are their core competence. How would you actually manage a distribution center with less manual input using automated service lines? Okay. So benchmarking is about trying to learn from the best in class companies. Okay. First you identify what is best in class in that particular service line, okay, or product, and then you try and understand how these companies are performing at that level. And you can not only look at examples in your sector, you can look at services or examples across the sector, cross-sector benchmarking. And there are many examples how leading firms have learned from existing firms in a particular domain. So hospitals have learned from Formula 1 teams. Okay? Formula 1 teams are known for the speed at which they act. Their key activities are done breakneck speeds. Okay. So these are some examples of who studied what and how companies strive to attain to a level of performance where they are called the benchmark in the industry. So most of the Fortune 1000 companies, almost 65% of them use benchmarking as a management tool to gain competitive advantage. Okay, so they are looking at others' operations and then they are trying to emulate them or learn from best practices and adapt them to perform better. There was a survey of about roughly 200 organizations from several different countries. Okay. They found that benchmarking was applied in most of the sectors, core sectors like healthcare, manufacturing, okay, financial services, construction. Right. And benchmarking has so many different definitions. One of those is benchmarking is the search for best industry practices which will lead to exceptional performance through the implementation of these best practices. You would probably learn a thing or two by looking at example best-in-class firms in your industry or across industries to implement them. Otherwise, naturally you might not be so inclined to deliver at that performance because you don't know exactly at what level competitors are performing. You know they are good, but how are they producing these results? There are 5 ways in which benchmarking can help to assess how well your organization is performing compared to the organization you're comparing against. It's just about comparing your results. You can set the performance targets for your employees. Okay, you can set realistic objectives as an organization to elevate your performance. So why are we talking about performance all the time? Performance is one aspect of value proposition, right? Like newness, okay, like design. You can benchmark on ease of access. Performance, you can benchmark against design. We looked at the LSC design bodies. Think of products. So I was talking about Volkswagen Beetle, which is still a very attractive design to many customers. It is a very prized possession for many people. In the UK, there's a lot of craze for these kind of cars. It gives you a vintage look, with modern features. For performance, Ferrari. Right? You can search out new ideas and practices that others are following so that you can use them in your own operations. In order to allow your staff or people to be more creative, you can provide these examples. That's how benchmarking can be used to stimulate creativity. Okay, and ultimately it will help drive innovation or improvement, change, transformation in your organization. Okay, there are 3 types in which benchmarking can happen: metric benchmarking, practice, and process benchmarking. Metric benchmarking is about finding out particular key performance indicators. Let's say you are a call center. Anyone? You're a call center. What would be your key performance indicator? There are quite a few, but just give me 1 or 2.
The communication.
Be precise.
Customer support.
Means what? Yeah, customer support is again a vague term.
Number of grievances solved.
Number of grievances solved, yeah.
Maximum number of customers who are satisfied with the solution
Yes,
provided.
yes, very good.
So the response time, the days in which the query was resolved.
How many times your phone rang before you picked it up? How long the customer was waiting in the queue? How many calls have you taken in a day? How many calls per individual in the call center floor? How many resolved queries versus unresolved queries? Satisfied customers. So these are some key performance indicators. If you're a call center, you want to learn from a best-in-class call center to see how you can compare this metric, right? What about practice benchmarking? You can look at how people are doing this stuff in real time. Okay, so again, stay with the call center example. So there might be certain practices where one company is outdoing the other or doing innovatively. There might be a script in front of everybody to be very uniform with your customers. That is one kind of practice. Okay. There is an open culture where they can keep the customer waiting but can't give the wrong answer to them. It's a good way of resolving the query rather than saying something and customer calling back again. Okay. There is a proactive way of helping customers. If they're struggling with one technical issue, you might identify another one and then be proactive and spend more time solving that issue. Okay. So these are practices that you can learn from the benchmark organization. Benchmark organization, the organization comparing against. Benchmarking organization is yours. And then it helps you to look at how you can change or improve your practice. Okay. And it can, this is a process, benchmarking can happen at the level of the organization, the particular department or function, or an individual process. Okay. So this is usual stuff. One day or the other you learn this. Okay, in marketing literature or operations literature, benchmarking is an important concept. But I just simply want to touch upon this to give you an idea that this is not the end of business model innovation. Okay, you can take this as a stepping stone, perhaps beginning or somewhere midway through. But there are many ways in which you could keep on innovating your business model by looking outside the sphere of your company, your ecosystem. Okay, so there is internal benchmarking. Internal benchmarking is about looking at certain departments who are performing really well. Okay, you can learn from your own company people who are performing well. Okay. At the startup level, it could be individual-based benchmarking also. You're looking at how the other person is using the system and how they are more efficient, how they are returning their emails. Okay. What is their own service standard versus department by department. Okay. Competitor benchmarking is you're looking at how competitors are performing. But why does a competitor allow you to come and take a look at their processes or practices? Give me examples. What did Tesla do? Tesla opened up its firm, all its patents to be used by electric vehicle manufacturers. What did P&G do? Procter & Gamble. It created a patent pool for other people to thrive from this because they wanted to bring affordable medical facilities or pharmaceuticals for people who cannot access, or nations who cannot access. So there are examples of where, for example, Malcolm Baldrige Award is a quality award which is highest standard award.
Yes.
Yeah, mainly in the US. So benchmarking is a regular practice. You can build a network, very informal network of people, maybe C-level people, friends or critical friends. Critical friends means you're a friend. In academia, it's all about critical friends.
Who can criticize you in your mistake.
Yeah. Only mistake, but always providing you opportunity to improve and thrive. There is what is called peer review system. You need to be open to,
Constructive
criticism. Yeah. So you can have these critical friends in other industry. Go and take a look at the process. You say, probably you could have done this in a different way. You invite them over to take a look at your own process. Okay. Some organizations will help their suppliers in order to be better by understanding their statistical process control. Statistical process control is about how your suppliers are producing the goods that you are ultimately using. Okay. Non-competitive benchmarking it's a very interesting kind of benchmarking. I'll rather give an example of non-competitive benchmarking. This is all regular slides. I don't want to spend this on time. Okay. Let's take a look at this non-competitive benchmark. Southwest Airlines is the leading airlines in the US. They are very well known. They are best in class for on-time performance. So when they say the flight leaves at 12:30, it does leave at 12:30. When say it arrives at a certain time, it does so. Okay, but they were facing a challenge. Okay, the average time that these aircrafts were grounded was increasing over a period of time, and they wanted to learn what happened basically. So they realized that their refueling, their practice of refueling is the culprit. It is taking longer. Okay, and what they did basically, Who would you benchmark against if you want to learn about refueling? Would you go to a nearest petrol station and see how an auto is refilling? Is there a method? There is all madness, no method to it. Have you seen a methodical way of refueling automobiles? Anywhere?
So in car racing only, it has to be done in the smallest time possible.
Formula 1. There is a method to it. They have mastered the process of refueling cars, changing the car
Changing
wheels,
the tires.
even wiping the visor, helmet visor off. How are they able to do that? This is again the core of operations management. This company, Southwest Airlines, although they are in airline business, they wanted to learn from Formula 1. Okay. They went and saw pit stop procedures. Okay. How long do you think an average F1 pit stop takes?
2 seconds.
The record is lower than that basically. They say 7.3 seconds, but it's lower than that.
5 point something.
You can check up later. But it's seconds. What can you meaningfully do in 3 seconds, 4 seconds? I can only pause. So they learned from best-in-class companies such as that. Not only this, there is one very interesting example that we take in service operations. Sir, probably knows it well. In service operations, there is a very famous hospital in London called the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. They are well known for doing one of its kind surgeries for the first time. Handling patients is very challenging. On top of it, handling infant patients is even more challenging. Performing complex surgeries on these little tiny bodies, imagine what kind of operations and operational excellence do they require. Not surgical operations, but activities that they have to do in order to perform the operation itself. Okay. So they realized that the fatality rate between changing these little patients from the surgical room through to a recovery room, another room based somewhere else, because surgical rooms are clean rooms and they have to maintain it a certain degree of
Sterile atmosphere needs to be there.
absolute, well, very well put. So they have to move them out. And what happened? They were struggling to do that. So a few doctors, they went and sat with the Formula 1 team. Okay. And they learned how not just Formula 1 people refuel cars very quickly, but there are roughly about 10 races every year, not 12 races. They are across the world, thousands of miles apart. They have to assemble everything, pack everything, go to that race, unpack everything, set up their stalls, and acclimatize the drivers. Do this for 3 or 4 days and then pack everything and then go to another location. Imagine what level of excellence is involved in managing these logistics. So these doctors wanted to learn that and they benchmark them, they benchmark the practices. Okay. 1.82 seconds was the record time for refueling. 1.82 seconds. At what rate does the nozzle pump fuel? What can you do in 1.82 seconds? Even if I click on IRCTC app, it takes a good few seconds. IRCTC is my benchmark. Having had a brush for weeks, I always love to come back to India and spend time with friends or family, and it is enthralling to think about traveling in train and looking around. But most of the time in my 19-hour journey to reach you guys, I was sleeping because my co-passenger was not allowing me to turn on the light. Imagine that. Okay, so jokes apart, I want you to find examples of benchmarking in your own business, line of business. Not in the immediate vicinity, not in the same sector, but you can think of other sectors. Think of what is the problem you want to master and see where you can find these examples to examine and learn from. Where will you find examples? What is the source of examples? How would you know who is best? Think of reviews. Okay, there are apps which only provide reviews for products and services. TripAdvisor provides reviews on hotels and other tourist-based information. Okay, which is another app or website which provides product-related information. Okay, Financial Times News has rankings on different sectors. Your own personal experience. Compare between grocery stores. Compare between Rapido and Ola and Uber. Who fulfills the service promise? Who comes quickly? What do you think might be happening behind the scenes? What are the agreements they had with these drivers? So I think you have access to journals, don't you?
Yes, sir.
So you can look at some of these business related magazines to know more about how companies perform, like A to Z database of market research reports, okay, like IBIS World, IBIS World. Earlier it used to be Mint and Mintel. Mint? Yeah, you have access to Mint. Take a look at Mint and see reports for e-commerce or delivery platforms. They'll provide a very clear picture of SWOT analysis, PESTEL analysis, Porter's 5 forces. They'll give you who are the leaders, how the trends are going to change in the next 5 years. They provide a very comprehensive view of the business in our learning. Okay. Now, coming back to our business model canvas where we began all of this. Okay. How do we innovate based on this canvas? We looked at the epicenter-based innovations. Okay. If you look at the canvas, there are two sides to it. If you draw a line roughly about in the middle, okay. The right side of the canvas is the value part. What is the value part? Look at what you're doing there. You're trying to provide these value propositions to your customer segments, okay? And each of the activities there, your customer relationships, your channels, revenue streams, is about capturing and delivering value, right? On the left hand side, this is called the efficiency side. Here, you are trying to create that value using your key activities, key resources, key partners, and your cost structure. So the two sides are, one is value side, the other one is the cost or efficiency side. Okay? This is another interesting dimension. Now, what you can do is, there's a framework called the 4 actions framework. You have to increase the value and reduce the cost. That is your objective on the business model canvas. Once you have refined it to a point, you are thinking about how can I enhance value. In order to enhance value, we looked at different kinds of innovations. In order to reduce costs also, we will look at, or we have covered some innovations, right? In both sides, you will have the need for innovating to increase value and reduce costs. When you are doing this simultaneously, okay, you will be in a blue ocean. This is also called blue ocean strategy. So what this says is basically, the 4 actions framework is eliminate, raise, reduce, create. You are eliminating the waste. For example, which factors can you eliminate that your industry has long competed on? Okay. Redundant steps. Some things your industry might have competed for a longer time. Think about, you're all in a new business model setup. If it is somewhat conventional, we could have taken examples. But think about the track record of other businesses in this area. Let's say, ride hailing. I mean, let's say your Uber sort of apps. How do businesses compete in this space? Think about Ola, think about Rapido, and think about Uber on on what are they competing?
The time in which they are coming to the company.
Cost also, or price.
Affordability.
Okay. But there are multiple other factors that are common across services.
Safety and regularity.
Can you think of anything new other than competing against what others are
So
already
less
using as
cancellations.
indicators?
Less cancellations.
Less cancellations. Okay. That's becoming more prominent now. Many cancellations. One lady was bad mouthing the driver who was giving me a lift on Rapido because he, by mistake, accepted that, and for her it is showing 3 minutes, and this guy says it is 30 minutes. Look at the gap between expectation and perception. So cancellations are a big challenge. It could be manual error or it could be intended action by the driver. So that's one example, but think about other examples where you can eliminate something that your industry has competed on for a long time. What can you raise? Which factor should be raised well above industry standards? Maybe this is now applicable. Less and less cancellations. One particular company thought very differently about ride hailing in India. And they said, customers are very tech savvy, they're using the app, there's someone in the car. Roughly educated customers, aware customers, they might also want to drive clean, on clean energy rather than emit a lot of pollution. Blue smart. Okay. They are competing against something that the industry has not competed on. How many clean miles are you delivering? How much CO2 are you adding to? How many tons of CO2 are you adding to environment? Reduce. Which factors should be reduced well below the industry standards? And create is which factor should be created that the industry has never offered. Give me one example of features that the industry, that traditional industry has never offered and a new company came up. That is when disruption takes place. When you're offering something the industry has never offered. We looked at the example of iPod providing seamless integration to iTunes as a software.
Nokia packages.
In Bangalore, Rapido is offering women-only rides.
Lenskart offering to try on the frames virtually. That was earlier not available.
SBI offered cashless without ATM card. You can withdraw the money from the ATM. It's a loan app which no bank can offer.
How? Is it with your phone?
Yes, sir. There is app, Yono app, which you can withdraw money. If you don't have an ATM card, it doesn't matter. You can go to ATM machine and via this app you can withdraw the money. So because I lost my ATM card and last 2 to 3 years I have using that app and
You never applied for another card.
no.
But why do you use cash anyway?
Sir, in some occasion I need
Petty cash. You need some petty cash. Good. Okay. So based on what you're proposing there, you are in for what is called a blue ocean strategy. So this is where the value innovation takes place, where you have successfully reduced the cost of your operations, your key activities and resources, and where you have successfully increased the value of your offering to your customer. Okay? If you are in that zone where both of them are merging, that is called value innovation. Okay? So we'll spend a little over a minute or two on blue ocean strategy. So there are roughly 2 types of strategies: blue ocean strategy and red ocean strategy. Red ocean is not a strategy. Red ocean is the effect of having more competitors in the environment. Blue ocean is where you have an untapped market, but untapped market does not exist. You create an untapped market, right? With your innovation, it's a perspective that customers might need this service. Once you empathize with them at the level of understanding what they are thinking and feeling, what they are seeing, what they are doing, what they are saying, okay? You understand exactly what is their insight not what they need, but what they might want, right? So that is when you create the blue ocean, you will be the early innovator. Then follows early adopters, then follows late adopters or laggards, then the industry becomes a red ocean again. Then you move out into another blue ocean. You are creating these blue oceans based on how much value innovation you can create based on your business model. We now have a proper recipe, an idea about how to create something more clear of a value proposition to customers. So you can blend these approaches, like we were talking about the cost side, value side. Okay. You can spend some time trying to understand this. So what happens is basically in all these 9 blocks, as you draw a midway line, on the left hand side you put the cost, on the right hand side the value. It is a matter of picking and choosing between what is your core competence and how you can master that. That's where your epicenter based innovation will sprout, and based on it you can make a trade-off between value side decisions and cost side decisions. Okay. This is a little more advanced than what we can think of, but this comes later. This comes with a real core problem that you have at the operational level. That's when we can start thinking about what to raise, what to eliminate, what to reduce, and what to create. Okay. I would have asked you to do this in pairs or in groups of how you want to use this 4 actions framework in your business model. Just on the face of it, based on what you wrote on the canvas, how can you think of eliminating and reducing, raising and creating? But you can do this later also. Okay. This information you have it in the slides. You can spend some time doing this if you want. Take this idea forward in time. Okay. So this is done. I think overall that's about it. But when you are trying to benchmark against a particular organization, these are some questions that you want to ask. And this is an activity sheet. You can print this off and you can write your responses later on. Okay. So what you're going to do is basically, what are the key factors customers look for in my service? It could be all the product related quality features or the service related quality features, or one simple particular outstanding item that customers are looking for. Key areas that might need improvement in my business. What processes and practices will you benchmark? Are there any competitors who perform better in these areas? Which companies should I choose to study? Where can I find this information? And what improvements will I make in order to change the business model? Right? That's that. Very, very simply, in about 5 to 6 minutes, I'll try to summarize this. Yeah. And then we'll conclude once and for all. So, all of this is happening in an environment. Okay? Your environment can be a blue ocean or a red ocean, but you're not immune to market forces as a business. Okay? There is a micro environment, okay, which is this one here. You are the focal firm. This is the micro environment in blue. And the macro environment, which is outside this, where you have little control over the factors as a business. You can somewhat influence your micro environment. In order to understand your micro environment, you do your Porter's 5 forces analysis, you do your SWOT analysis. In order to understand your macro environment, you do pestle analysis or key trends analysis. Okay, so these are conventional ways of understanding your micro and macro environment. But business model environment, in the business model canvas terms or business model innovation terms, can be understood like this. All these forces or all these aspects are acting on your canvas. Your canvas is your business, right? It is your holy grail. So think about industry forces. Industry forces are your Porter's 5 forces: stakeholders, competitors, new entrants, substitute products, and so on. Okay. Key trends are regulatory trends, technology trends. Again, these are some factors sourced from Pestle. Okay. Macroeconomic forces are global market conditions, capital markets, economic infrastructure, and market forces are, issues within that market, needs and demands of customers that are changing. Okay, different segments, other customers, sorry, other competitors are catering to. So these are a little bit fancy terms, but this is one way to look at how several different factors have an influence on how you conduct your business, and based on which you have to change or transform from time to time. That is where problems might occur, and we looked at, as problem solvers, what approach do you take? You take a holistic approach. It is a systems based approach. This is again a holistic approach. This is the boundary of your system. Okay. This is the macro environment where things are trying to impinge on your business model, which you have to address diligently and change your offerings from time to time, which will require changing your activities, changing your resources, changing your cost structure and so on. So this is a very panoramic view of how different things can impinge on your business model. So for each of these aspects, there are several questions that you have to ask. Okay. Again, this will be available to you. Spend some time trying to understand what will happen at each of these levels. Okay? Industry forces, key trends. Think about technology trends. We talked about a lot on technology trends. Okay? Technology trends is about identifying various changes in technology that could threaten your business model or enable you to evolve or improve. Okay? So what questions are you asking? What are the major technology trends, both inside and outside your market? Which technologies represent most important opportunities or disruptive threats? Which emerging technologies are peripheral? What does this mean? Which emerging technologies are peripheral? Customers are often, okay. How your customers are basically maturing in the way they use technology. Okay. Disruption can happen on the supply side and on the demand side also. As a focal firm, if disruption is happening on the demand side, you have to instantly change the way your business model functions. Okay. If it is happening on the supply side, you will have less and less bargaining power. Either ways, you need to be adapting to these trends. Okay. And you should balance how disruptions are impacting both your customers and your suppliers. So this happens very well in the consulting space. As a consultant or a consultancy firm, okay, you are providing problem solving as a service to your customers. Okay? Customers are businesses. Your suppliers are anyone who provides more knowledge, okay, as a package, or softwares or AI-based technologies that you are using in order to solve the problems there. If demand side disruption is too much, customers won't need you anymore. Yeah, if they are happy to use this technology on their own, they don't need you anymore. If supply side disruption is too much, you will have little bargaining power. You will not be necessary again. Supplier can directly provide to the customer. So keeping a tab on technological trends is very essential in the business model. Okay, similarly macroeconomic forces. So these are the ways in which you can examine your business model with an outside-in perspective. We looked at empathy map as an inside-out perspective. Okay, we looked at epicenter-based innovation as an inside-out perspective. Now we are looking at all the macroeconomic trends. Okay, Pestel, Porter's, and SWOT analysis as ways to understand your business model outside in. So this is the sum total of our understanding so far, and key concepts that you should know as enthusiasts of business in the field of entrepreneurship, and someone who would want to build robust business models that go to market at some point. It's been a privilege interacting with you over the last 5 days. Thank you very much for this time. I hope you have learned a thing or two, or you'll carry this learning forward into your MBA, and this will be sort of an anchor where you could always come back to, okay, in order to understand business more holistically, right? Thank you once again. Really appreciate your time. Okay.